Hi, and welcome. Welcome to the lounge on this wonderful Friday evening. Just say hi to me in the comments if you're here and you are excited about our new little series that we have coming out for you. As you can see, the light is coming in. It's not as dark as it was in the winter. And I wanted to bring you this near death experience series where we explore the afterlife. And usually, you guys are used to me talking to people who are already on the other side and are definitely not coming back. And today, we're going to talk to someone who's been to heaven and back and has a wonderful and astounding story to tell. And as you remember from last week, we discussed with Emily Spear, the Pool of Peace. A lot of you have had some amazing reflections with that interview. And I know it was very moving for me. And I'd like to explore this further by doing a series of interviews for you, because I know a lot of you have lost, have loved, have lost. A lot of us here have had the same experiences. And it's nice to know that our loved ones are okay. It's great to have a mediumship reading, right? It's great to have a session where you have a connection with that person and they say things that only you would know, and you know that they're okay. But we still miss them here. We still miss their physical presence, speaking to them, laughing with them, giving them a phone call. And as, you know, someone who is the postman for these messages, and it's a wonderful experience, I don't have the information that somebody would have that says, well, what do they do over there? What happens when my loved out of their body and goes to the other side? What do they do? Who do they meet? What happens? Is this the same for everybody? If you're Jewish, if you're Catholic, if you're Buddhist, is it different? Is there a heaven or hell? We had a question last week because Emily encountered a connection with Jesus. What did he look like? Did he look like the pictures that we all see? So I have so many questions for each of these amazing and humble people that are coming on to speak about their experience. And I can't wait to get to our story today. So as we did last week, you are free to ask questions in the comments. You're free to post. But unlike other lounge interviews, sometimes we may wait till after the interview to answer some of those questions, but your questions will get answered. So if you have a question for one of our experiencers, please put it in the comments. Feel free to say hi. This is the lounge, so we keep the energy high. We keep things moving. And I can't wait to bring on Evan this evening. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Evan, and we will get him right on the air. So his name is Evan Meekum, and he is a successful American businessman living in Colorado, which I don't know why, but I've always been drawn to Colorado, like since I was a kid. And I finally got to experience it a few years ago. There's something about Colorado. I don't know what it is, but I had this love for it even before I went and visited there, although the altitude was a little tough for me right away. But then I think I got used to it. But upon graduating from college with a degree in history, Evans served his country as an officer in the United States Air Force Reserve and was retired as a major. He worked for 16 years and climbed rapidly through management positions with manufacturing companies in the automotive aftermarket. For those last 7 of those years, he was an owner and president of Velm Incorporated, which grew into the world's largest non-electric automotive sunroof company. Velm customers included aftermarket distributors and retailers from all over North America, Europe, Japan, and Korea. Velm was a pre-Q1 supplier to General Motors and Daewoo Motors in Korea. Evans sold Velm Incorporated in 1993 and started a new Colorado corporation, BPE Incorporated, the parent company for several businesses, including EMA Inc. EMA is, I think I'm pronouncing that properly. If not, Evan can feel free to correct me, is a marketing, sales, and consulting firm, which now represents some of the largest automotive suppliers in North America. EMA covers 16 Western and Southwestern states for manufacturers such as WeatherTech, Dana Spicer, and MagnaFlow. Evan was active in his industry, and his company was a member of the SEMA, Specialty Equipment Marketing Association, the Performance Warehouse Association, and the MRC Council. In addition, Evan was the chairman of the SEMA Open Air Committee for many years. The SEMA organization holds the largest trade show globally once each fall in Las Vegas, Nevada. Over 120,000 people attend this event. When Evan was in his mid 30s, while driving in the mountains, he was involved in a horrendous accident. When he swerved to avoid a deer, he lost control of his automobile on the wintry highway, and his vehicle was literally cut in half by a semi. Suffering crushed lungs, shattered hip, broken shoulder, and bleeding profusely internally, he exited his devastated body. He found himself in a place of beauty, gentle kindness, and unconditional love. Given a choice to stay or return, his answer shot him back into his broken and freezing body and the many years of healing and rehabilitation to recover from his injuries. The knowledge of that visit home would stay with him the rest of his life and would change the way he lived in every possible manner. Evan discovered that he saw the world differently. He even brought back spiritual gifts that initially frightened him, and I want to hear about that, then blessed him and others he could help and bring back light into their lives. Evan's desire to serve motivated him to go back to school to become a transpersonal psychologist. His practice is located in Broomfield, Colorado. Further, Evan is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, regression therapist, minister, and spiritual counselor. He is trained in NLP, which is something I am very interested in learning more about, spirit release, gestalt therapy, and Reiki energy healing. He applies his gifts and his knowledge on a frequently pro bono basis. Evan has served as a board member at the Caritas Spiritual Center in Boulder and has been a co-facilitator for the meetup group, The Healing Connection. In addition, he attends and supports the former Buddhist Shambhala Mountain Center, now renamed the Dharala Mountain Center, where he has spent many enlightening hours on a meditation cushion. Evan has been a volunteer for the second largest privately funded food bank in Colorado, Broomfield Fish. He has served as a navigator or caseworker, counseling and mentoring community members, helping them find their feet and learn to thrive. Evan is also a published author and writes spiritually uplifting articles. His most recent submission is in the last publication of the Creation Spirituality Communities. This organization has 15 community centers located throughout North America. Evan is also a member and supports Caritas, SSE, ISSEEM, and IANTS. Awesome. That was a lot for me to read, but I hope that you guys connected with that. And without further ado, I want to welcome Evan. Hi, Evan.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
That sounded exhausting. Do you need to rest your voice?
Well, you have a lot going on there. There's a lot to go over, a lot of accolades, a lot of recognition, a lot of things you've done in your life. And it seemed to me that you were also a member of the corporate world for quite some time and not so much the spiritual, like, what people would call the woohoo world of healers and practitioners and people looking to transform other people. You kind of started out in the, you were in the military, which thank you again for serving our country as long as you did. And then you kind of went into corporate America. So when you were that guy in corporate America, right? Did you even think about the afterlife? Did you even think about spirituality, life after death? Did you have a religious path at the time? And what were your beliefs about it? Or did you even think about it at all?
I actually did. My parents were very religious people. I was raised in a Christian home, and I think I always had a very strong feeling about religion, about having a closeness to God, and I was never really truly lost in the material world. I had a family early, and I loved being with my family, and I love my children. So yes, it was always a life of some spirituality, no matter what I did. So.
All right. So you were already like high in vibration. I mean, you were already living a life of...
I don't know how high in vibration I was, but I certainly did think about religion. Yes, absolutely.
So at that point in time when you were, going to church and connecting with your community and your family, you really had no fear of death at that time?
Oh, I think I certainly had a fear of death. I find that most people do. I would count myself along with those individuals at that period of time. I didn't think about death. One of the most amazing things about having a near-death experience is the awakening to how short your life can be, and how there is no warning. You are alive and functioning 1 second, and in the blink of an eye, you can be somewhere else. So I was certainly awakened to that when I had my automobile accident.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. And you were only in your early 30s at the time, so it's not like you had lived, a long life at the time that that happened to you.
I,
And
I certainly didn't. I certainly
yeah,
didn't think so. That's for sure. Yeah.
yeah. And it was snowing that night. You said it was snowing or in the wintering mix, so there was snow on the ground, or it was the winter time when this happened.
Yes. Yes, Marissa. It was
Okay.
a winter night driving in the mountains in the Rocky Mountains.
Mhm.
There was some ice and snow on the road, and um, it was slick conditions. So yeah, it was a treacherous drive.
And did you? You'll see with my interviewing, I ask very sometimes questions that most people probably wouldn't ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Shoot away.
Um, Sometimes when something happens in life to this degree, somebody has a bad feeling before it happened. Did you have any kind of intuitive warnings internally that maybe it wasn't the best time to go out that night, or do you believe like this was supposed to happen the way it happened?
Well, those are interesting questions. No, I did not have any intuitive warning that I was going to be in dire straits in a short while. I was thinking about business. I was thinking about how to make the business grow and move forward. I was a busy young guy, and aggressively engaging my mind in how to be the very best businessman I could.
And were you in any way distracted as you were driving? Were you on the phone? There probably wasn't cell phones at that time. So I mean, we only had them what, like 10, like 15 years ago.
Oh,
So when you're 30,
you're absolutely right.
yeah,
There was no
yeah.
cell phones, so I wasn't distracted by a telephone, and the driving conditions were really demanded that you pay attention. So
Hmm.
I think I was quite engaged in driving the automobile. It was simply a matter of coming around a bend and then going over a little hill. And as I came off of that hill, my headlights hit a very large mule deer, which is the primary deer species in the Rocky Mountains. And this was a large male deer with a full rack of horns. And um, I was heading straight for it. And um, it was impossible to stop. I hit my brakes, that didn't work. And I knew that as I approached that deer, that deer was going to come right over the hood of my car and end up in my lap. So in a split second, I turned the wheels of the vehicle to the left, and then missed the deer, turned back to the right, and and the car did not respond. It simply continued to slide across the highway and into oncoming traffic.
Gee, so you actually did do what you needed to do to avoid the deer. So you actually were successful at doing that. Um, you know, and I've seen though. I mean, when I was in Estes Park in Colorado, I those mules were like going across the road, like they had a mule crossing. They're huge. They are huge. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. So I'm assuming that's what you were talking about. Those kind of animals. It's not like a deer you see.
Well, it is a deer species, and it's just a larger deer than the blacktail or the whitetail deer that
Yeah.
that you have in other states. Um, it was enough to make me very uncomfortable, and I'm sure end my life as well if that deer had come through the windshield. Um, at the same time, um, it's fascinating because in hoping that I would miss the deer, I traded that experience with that animal to running nearly head on into a semi truck that was coming up the hill, and
Jeez.
I was desperately trying to bring the vehicle back into control and get out of that oncoming lane of traffic, and I saw the truck, and it flashed through my mind that, oh my gosh, this is going to be a head-on collision. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the last thing I remember. I did impact the truck, and my automobile, which was a full-size automobile, was literally from the left front tire to the rear right brake light. Um, that one whole half of the car just disappeared. I was struck on the shoulder and the left rib cage, and pushed down onto the floor of the vehicle. And as that happened, my right knee hit the dashboard and drove my femur through my right hip, and it was devastating contact with that truck. I hit I hit that semi truck so hard that I still have paint chips buried underneath my skin on my left arm. It's a reminder I see of my mistake in driving every morning. So it, maybe I should have chosen the deer. I don't know.
Well, upon your experience, and we'll get into that very soon, looking back on this, do you feel just in your heart that this was kind of one of those divine moments that you were supposed to happen in your life so that you can help others, or do you feel like it was that you were really off track and off center and it was something that could have been avoided?
Well, do I think it could have been avoided? I certainly do. Do I think it was a wake up call for me? I absolutely believe that as well. Um, I look at this as God grabbing me by the shoulders and giving me a good shaking, and waking me up, and giving me an opportunity at the same time to understand how valuable life is, how important life is, and how beautiful life can be, and to wake me to how to live our lives with the time that we have here on the planet. So I am very, very grateful to have gone through this wake up process. I apologize to the people that I hurt that evening. Um, the passenger in the semi truck was injured, and he's fine now. But I ruined a lot of people's evening by having this accident, um, and at the same time, I'm grateful that this happened to me because it changed my life.
And I mean, what you're saying before, you're saying you lived a good life, you spiritual, believed in God, you're a great dad, and you know, a good businessman, and you lived a life of morals and ethics and values. Why would you think you needed a wake up call if you were living according to those principles? Like maybe you were seemed to be living a good centered life.
There is so much more. The world and the universe, the cosmos, it's so big. It's so immense. And a human life on this planet is so valuable if they're awake,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually awake. If they realize that there's more than you can do than just live a good life. We need to reach out. We need to continue to grow and expand. We need to offer the world service. We need to offer the world the knowledge and understanding that we have learned by experiencing such an exciting adventure of stepping across. I mentioned earlier on that um, I was afraid of death. Um, Two things happened to me that night when I was coming back to my conscious self after the accident. I'm laying on the floor of that automobile and I'm trying to wrap my arms around what has happened to me. And it's bitter cold, and the wind is blowing. The glass is gone from the vehicle. Part of the vehicle is torn open, and bitter cold. I began to shake, and I began to feel the pain of my injuries. It was at first frightening to me. As time went on, and I began to turn into myself and realize what had truly happened to me. And I realized that I was truly um, very injured. Um, and I was beginning to lose consciousness. I literally had an epiphany, and it was incredibly beautiful to me. I made peace with my life. I made peace with the world. I made, I, I discovered that as I slipped away into an unconscious state, the the cold disappeared, and it was like I was being covered up with a warm blanket. And in my mind, I said, even if there is nothing more, if life ends and all consciousness ends with death, I'm okay with this. It
Mm.
was as if I was slipping away into a wonderful night's rest. And I was at peace with that. That was a contemplation that I never thought I would have.
Right. Yeah. Most people don't think that they would think that way. Do you think that you'd be so scared, you panicked, anxious, not knowing what to do?
I
Yeah.
I would have thought that. I would
Right.
have thought that. But that was not the experience. And as I was slipping away, I I I literally did a scan of my body. I could not feel anything from my mid thoracic region below. My feet were numb, my legs were numb. I had no feeling in them at all, and I realized I said to myself in my mind, I'm going to be, if I live, I'm going to be a paraplegic. And then I went immediately to count the things that I had left. That again was an epiphany that I didn't mourn the loss.
Hmm.
I simply was grateful for whatever I had left. When I finally did slip into unconscious, an unconscious state, and I awakened on the other side, I was grateful. I knew exactly where I was.
Hmm. So you knew you were dead at the time.
I did.
Yeah.
I was I was seeing myself from a distance, which was fascinating to me. I saw myself laying down on the ground, slightly below, like I was laying in an indentation in the ground. And all around me was like ground fog. So I couldn't literally see if I
Hmm.
was standing on earth or what it looked like. And and as I saw myself from a distance, I looked up and I saw this incredible sight. It was as if I was standing in front of a black hole, only the black hole was not black. It was an enormous opening, an enormous opening. It filled the sky. And as you entered the opening, the light got brighter and brighter and brighter. And I saw what appeared to be souls, spirits, in ethereal form, sometimes individuals, sometimes in small groups, and they were moving into this large opening.
Were they separate? Like they were moving towards the opening and the light, like almost they were in the same situation as you, or they were greeting you as you were coming
No,
through?
no, they were in the same situation I was,
I see.
and they were moving into this enormous opening. I all of a sudden was back, and I was seeing things from the ethereal body that I had. I picked myself up, and I noticed that my feet were not touching the ground. I looked at myself, and I looked back at the beings that were moving towards the that enormous opening, and they were radiant, filled with light. I looked down at myself, and I saw that I too was a being of light. Um, I turned my gaze to the right and upward, and everywhere was like I was standing um, looking at the Milky Way at nighttime. It was absolutely beautiful. I was attracted to several other ethereal beings, like beings that looked very much like I did, and they were fairly close to me. And I I was attracted to them, and I moved towards them. As I approached them, they reached out and they embraced me. I began to feel at that time, and I realized that within the moments between passing over from earth into this spirit realm, all of my feelings had changed. All of the concerns, all of the woes, all of the worries, all of the thoughts about business, all of the thoughts about money and moving up the ladder and
Mm-hmm.
all of the all of the things that I thought were so important and critical in my earthly life were completely gone. And I was being embraced. I felt love. I felt acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
It was as if I had returned home, and the feeling of fraternity, of oneness with these other souls was so beautiful. I I could barely comprehend it.
Did you recognize these other souls at all, or were they just strangers that lived on the earth that were going through? Is this the tunnel? I guess this is the tunnel that people talk about.
At the entrance to the tunnel, I was not entering the tunnel yet.
Okay.
These were actually out on the plain before entering into that enormous opening.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not recognize them. They were not my relatives that I knew of, that I had experienced and had relationships with on earth. But at the same time, the feeling of fraternity, the feeling that I was connected to them was incredibly powerful.
Do you feel, I know some people when they come out feel like they are in space, like they are in the outer space in the galaxy. Were When you talk about the black hole and the Milky Way, were you actually in outer space, or what did it just look like outer space?
I don't know if I could differentiate between that,
Yeah.
but it certainly felt like I was in an enormous space. The
Hmm.
tunnel that I saw, that enormous opening with the light getting ever brighter as you went further into that opening, was enormous. It was not some little thing. It
Yeah.
was enormous. The stars were all around me, and it was as if we were floating in space. Yes.
Yeah, because when I look at visions of space or pictures of space or just looking into it does seem like maybe people don't realize that that is part of divine, the divine entering, the divine nature of things. And it's just not, I mean, it's so expansive and amazing. It's hard to really, understand it.
I don't think we can truly understand it. I
Yeah.
don't. Can I read something really quick?
Sure, absolutely. Please do.
I was asked similar questions to what you are asking me right now. And I wrote this back to an individual. And in it, I'm talking about what it was like on the other side. And I think it might help us. On the other side, there was a silent harmony, love, ideas, acceptance, sentiment, mood, reaction, exchanges were wave like that flowed from one soul to another or the many. Reality was sensation. If you have ever stood alone in the mountains, far away from the things of man, when winter draws its cloak of white to cover the earth, then stand as still as a human can stand, and for a moment hold your breath. You may come close to the sounds of the light.
Mm.
That's what it was like. There was no voices, there was no speaking. Thoughts came from mind to mind, from heart to heart. It was an amazing way to communicate, and it was beautiful. There felt there was no feeling of hierarchy.
Mm.
People that greeted me were my brothers. They were not higher beings. They were not treating me as someone who is lesser than themselves. I was their brother, and I was embraced as if I was returning home.
And this is even before you even got through that portal, got through. This
Exactly.
is like just what you experienced. The acceptance, the love, the fraternity was even more amazing than anything you've probably ever felt on earth, even before you went ahead into that doorway.
Beautiful. You repeated that so beautifully. That's exactly right. This
Yeah.
was an overwhelming feeling of love. Some people talk about judgment, and everyone who has a near-death experience will experience things a little bit differently. Some things will be recognizable, others will not. Some people see Jesus. People who are of other faiths, other religions, they may see someone who's important within their idea of spirituality. Um, um, it's it really doesn't matter. The feeling
Right.
is the same.
Exactly.
It's all about love. It's all about acceptance. It's all about the oneness of the cosmos, the oneness of all things. I felt like I joined my comrades and
Yeah.
we were all one once more.
I have a kind of a controversial question to ask because there's very specific different religions throughout the world, right? We'll say my way's the right way, your way's the wrong way. If you don't believe in this, you're going to be judged or go to hell. If you don't believe this way, and the way I believe is that as long as you have a path to God, as long as you're seeking God, just a different school, it's just a different university, you're still getting the same diploma, right?
Yes.
So, would you say that there's only one way to God? There's only one way, there's only one religion? Or would you say that God accepts us all as long as we seek him?
The greatest power in the universe is love. Even in the Christian Bible and in the Talmud, it will tell you, and even in the Quran, it will tell you the same thing, that love is the greatest power of the universe. It will also tell you, in all of those references, it will tell you that God created the world, God created the universe, the cosmos, however you'd like to describe it, and he said it was good.
Mm-hmm.
God loves us all exactly the same. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter how we've lived. God loves us all.
I grew up a Roman Catholic, so I grew up, Christian, and there are those, times where you think, well, if I don't go to confession, if I don't do these things, uh, I am not going to be absolved, not going to be forgiven. And I also know with different branches of Christianity, where people would ask if I have these abilities that I have, and these gifts were kind of spiritually given to me that I have in this world, saying, that's wrong. What you have these abilities, and I had a religious vision when these things were activated, which I won't talk about today, but I believe they were God given. And so people will say, well, if you're doing that, like that's bad. That's not in the Bible, and that's not. But then I talked to certain priests in the Roman Catholic religion, and there's different, they're like, no, we just don't talk about it, but it's fine. It's like we don't bring it out. We don't want to scare people, but this, these gifts were given. And then you talk to other people and they say, well, you're doing this, like you're a bad person. There's something wrong. Like you have to, you know, you're not going to be going to heaven. You're talking to bad spirits. But I'm like, you know what? If having these abilities, being able to tell people that a loved one is okay is bringing people more peace and more faith in God and is bringing them closer to God, then it must not be bad. It must not be part of a shadow situation.
Of course not.
So,
These are a gift. You have a gift
yeah,
from God,
yeah.
and you need to use that gift. That's what I learned as well when I've had this experience. God is love. God is acceptance. God created this earth, this cosmos, and it's bigger than all of us.
Hmm. So let me get back to you because I just kind of went off on a little tangent here.
Don't worry.
So going back to this opening, what happened next? Where'd you go? What'd you see?
Um, being embraced like I was and conversing through my heart with these individual souls, um, I was told that I have a choice. And I think that in itself is an incredible lesson as well. We always have a choice. They said, "You're welcome to stay home, but it's your choice whether you stay or whether you go back. And you need to make that decision." And I remember exactly how quickly my mind went to my children. And the thought came through me that I would like to see my children grow up, to see their life unfold. And as soon as I had that thought, I was shot back into my body.
Mm.
It was as if someone turned the speed up on the camera of life, and I watched myself shoot through and back into my body and back into that broken, bleeding,
Mm.
broken and bleeding body that was so pain racked at that time and so bitter cold. And I began shaking again, and uh, coming back to consciousness was such an awakening, such a shock. Um, I I moved for the first time, and I looked up, and there were men working on the vehicle. I could see that they were firemen, and they had the jaws of life, and they ripped open the door and then ripped up what was left of the roof of my car and put a board under my body and extracted me from the vehicle. And the pain was excruciating. and I began to think maybe maybe I should have stayed.
Right, right.
And they placed me in the ambulance. And being high in the mountains, I was about 45 minutes away from the closest hospital. And they took very good care of me all the way back to the hospital. And and I was told by the EMT that was taking care of me that I was going to be in incredibly good hands. That this hospital they were taking me to um, is um, is right close to the intersection of three highways, and they have so many automobile accidents that they decided that they should put together a trauma team. And
Wow.
and the night of my accident was their first trauma team meeting. And all of the doctors from all of the departments who would make up this trauma team were present at the hospital that night.
Mm.
It was a synchronicity that saved my life. I was offloaded and brought into the emergency room, and a team of doctors um, absolutely came from all angles at me with needles and tubes. And I remember the first doctor came with a very long needle, and he placed the needle into my below my sternum, and pulled the plunger back, and it was full of blood. He said, "Ruptured spleen." The doctor on my left, who was trying to reinflate my lung, was yelling at the other doctors that the ribs were so broken that he can't get the tube in to allow the lung to reinflate. They were coming at me from all angles, and of course they're rushing to save my life. And so I'm experiencing all of these things that were overwhelming and terribly painful. And I have no clue how long it took, but they finally were ready to wheel me in to the surgery and begin operating on me. And I remember whispering to one of the doctors, "Could someone pray for me?" And without any hesitation, that doctor announced that he was going to pray for me. And the room, which had been a cacophony of sounds, instantaneously became still. And this doctor, who had never met me before, ever, prayed for me. And when he said amen, the sounds came back again, and the doors flew open, and I was rushed into surgery. Well, that night, the doctors told my wife later that they gave me a 3% chance of living. I will never forget the kindness shown me by that trauma team, and how beautifully that doctor prayed for me that night. It was inspirational. That in itself tells you how you can be of service to those in need, no matter what you do in life.
It's very moving. But you're I'm already starting to tear up myself about this. What you're saying is just so powerful. That small acts of kindness go such a long way.
Truly. They truly do.
And we think it's the large ones. We think it's the large ones. We think it's the, if you're a billionaire, it's giving that $1 million to a charity, but maybe it's walking down the street and smiling at a stranger who might be depressed and looking to end their life. Maybe it changes everything.
A gentle act of kindness can change the world.
Absolutely.
Think if we all did that. Think of how the world would change. Going back to what you were talking about before, about your spiritual gifts, think if we all forgot about what we think is right or wrong, and instead treated everyone with no judgment, with acceptance, with gentle kindness. It would change the world. And I say that Be, very carefully, because it's a mistake. The world is perfect. God created the world and made it perfect. He said it was good. We're the ones that need the help. And the only people that can help us are our brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And when we meet them with love and fraternity and gentle kindness, with no judgments, but acceptance and understanding, the world will be heaven on earth.
Yeah. I second that. And I mean, this happened to you. I don't know what your age is now. I don't even want to ask what your age is.
105. I'm on
105. But this happened. I mean, it's been a while since, this happened. You had to live on the earth uh for quite some time since
yeah.
that time, and I read in your bio that you started to have your own spiritual gifts as a result
Yes.
of this. And what were those types of gifts that came about that you didn't have before?
Um, like you, I I I hear spirits. I see spirits. Um, I am often directed to say a gentle word or offer a bit of kindness, and that, of course, in the very beginning was
Bit much.
a bit much to deal with. Yes,
Yeah. And when you say you see them, as I have more of a informational channel, it's kind of like a funnel above my head with all sorts of information and downloads that happens, and I see them that way. But do you actually have the gift of seeing them
I
like
do.
you see me?
I do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
S And are you just seeing them like a mute at television, or are they giving you telepathic information?
No, they often have messages that they are desperate to pass along,
Yeah.
um, and um, and often they're incredibly meaningful, as you said, to
Mhm.
the individual that the message is for. Um, Often it changes that individual who is living here on the planet. It changes their life.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Did it scare you once you started seeing them, or you've been to the other side, so you know that life after death exists? So was it just a natural part of you being in this other vibration coming back and being like, okay, well, the veil's been lifted, and I already know that there's no such thing as, two different places. Did it all kind of come together for you and it's part of your existence? Or is it still very strange, even though you know that this exists, that you're experiencing these things?
This is a great conversation we're having, because I think it's important, um, um, for people to understand that, um, I did not appreciate all of the things that I understand today when I first had this experience. I struggled for 10 years to really get my arms around everything that happened to me. It was years before people talked about near death experiences. When I had this happen to me, it was a near death experience was as foreign as a cellular phone.
Yeah, right.
I talked about, and it was very surprising, when I found somebody I could actually talk to about this. Um, People who were, um, part of my church If I brought these things up, my experience was the same as your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Disbelief, you're seeing things, you must be seeing dark spirits, you must be seeing
Mm-hmm.
something that's awful, rather than opening to this and seeing that, number one, we never die,
Mm-hmm.
that love is the greatest energy and power in the universe, and that acceptance is what we experience when we cross over. We are welcomed back. We are brothers and sisters, and we are all a part of the oneness. Instead of seeing that, we want to apply all of the judgments that are so common to our life on this earth and to humanity in general.
Yeah, I mean, when you went back to that supportive community, your church, that gave you so much inspiration and hope and that brotherhood here and that camaraderie, and you had that lack of support. I had a client, somebody that was watching me at a theater. I was doing a large show, and they did not believe, and then they ended up getting a message and took it back to the church, and they called me. They said, "You wouldn't believe the, you know, I didn't get any support. In fact, I got, ridicule from even thinking that this is real." How did that make you feel? I mean, toward uh, toward the people in your church at that time, and were you able to change any minds, or did you have to leave that community for feeling unsupported?
Everything changed for me.
Mm-hmm.
As I went through the years, um, I didn't see it as much as my family saw it, as much as my friends saw it. Uh, it is um, it is a slow learning curve. It was trying to understand and embrace what happened to me. It was not feeling the same about things. My hobbies changed. Um, I changed. I became a vegetarian. I could no longer feel good about shooting animals.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
could. I didn't. I didn't feel good about how I was doing business in many ways. Um, Slowly over the years, I watched myself finally when I could see that I was changing. I could see myself. I went from a businessman that shook hands to a businessman who saw their clients and their customers as friends, and handshakes became embraces. Honest dealings and being upfront with people became a way that I conducted myself. And when I went out to visit customers, I was welcomed with embraces. It was a complete change in how you interact with your fellow human beings on the planet. And
Yeah.
it takes it takes years to work through all those things and to
Mm-hmm.
really understand it. I remember the day that I first heard about a near-death experience, and I was in a class taking classes, and um, the professor brought up the idea of an NDA and a near-death experience in NDE, and and I was really taken aback. Class ended. I'm stuck in my seat. My head is in my hands, and I'm wondering, oh my gosh, is this what I experienced? And the professor was putting his papers away and was walking up to leave the classroom, and he saw me sitting there. He said, "What's going on?" And I said, I think I just found the name to what I've been experiencing. Big things like these, things that alter how we see the world. Um, it takes a while to really understand and grasp what's happening to you. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
So do you still practice the same religion that you've practiced, or are you kind of more spiritual now? Or do you belong to a church or a spiritual community?
um, my spiritual community is not a religious group.
Mhm.
It is made up of people who have strong feelings for religion, some who have none, some who are Muslims, some who are Buddhist, some who are Hindu. Um, we we all get along like a family, and we live with no judgment of each other. We embrace our differences. We look to God who created us all, and we accept each other as God accepts us, with love and with understanding, with gentle kindness.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I thank you so much. I wish I could talk to you 2 more hours because it's just I'm so into this conversation. We are at the hour, so I would love to thank you for coming to our community. And, like, I didn't address the audience as I normally do, but if you guys have any questions, if you have any comments, if you would like to ask any follow-up questions of Evan, please, on YouTube or Facebook, please put it in the comments, and we will get back to you after we air, and we'll get back to you on the replay. So thank you so much, Evan, for coming. And is there any place you would like our listeners to find you, or is there anything you'd like to promote, or is there any place that anything you'd like to say before we leave?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Marisa, for inviting me to come and share this time with you. You have you put me right at ease with how you do your wonderful job, and I
Oh,
appreciate it. It was like having a conversation, and I'm very grateful.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'll leave you with my email address. Anyone
Okay.
is absolutely welcome to email me, ask me any questions that you may have, and I'll do my very best to give you the best answer I can.
And why don't you give that to me? I'll put it up on the banner if you can give me the email.
It is basically my name. It's E Meekham, MECHAM, at evanmeekham.com. And Evan is EVAN.
Let me just put this up here on the banner. Make sure that I have it correct. And hopefully that is right.
That's right.
Okay. So any questions, and you could also put your comments in, and I'm sure Evan will be on Facebook after the interview or tomorrow to see what you guys are saying and answer any of your comments or questions. Thank you again, Evan, for coming and sharing your amazing story of hope and inspiration. So many people that watch this show have lost people, are grieving, and that loss is heavy for a lot of people. So knowing that there's a little bit of lightness, a little bit of hope, that their loved one is happy, because everybody just wants to know, is my loved one okay? Are they happy? Could they just come back and talk to me one more time? You know, and it's being a medium. I've lost several very close people to me tragically.
Sure.
And the funny thing, the way the universe works is I can do tens of thousands of sessions for other people, but I can't do it for myself. So this helps me also to know that my loved ones are okay. And you're an inspiration and hope to many people, and to bring up that as we look into the expanse of the universe and the other side and everything you're talking about, wow, that's so amazing. You bring back the message of kindness, of love, of a simple act that has more power than any of those majestic things that we talk about, any of those amazing gifts, all the money in the world, all the material things that we can have. It's the simple act of kindness, gentleness, compassion that changes us, changes the world, and is a little piece of heaven on earth. And that's what we're here to do. So I really appreciate you bringing that to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you guys